Bethany is a little bit on the slope of the Mount of Olives. It is toward, as you're looking here at Jerusalem, it's that way, on the Mount of Olives. Here's the Mosque of Omar, of course, that's Mount Moriah. Over here is the old city where David came in and took over from the Jebusites. The Jebusites, archaeologists say the Jebusites came here about 3500 BC. Now, somewhere around there, around 3000, and they were Turk. They came from Turkey, okay? And they came into this area. They were here when David was here, and they were there when Abraham was there, and they were there for a long time, okay? This is what we call the city of Jebush. Of course, here's the Morocco of Mount Moriah, and this whole area in here is Mount Moriah, by the way. The temple area is, the whole city of Jerusalem is not very big. The walls are average of 40 feet tall around it. Now these walls that you see today are about from, well, some of them the walls go all the way back to Solomon's times in the bottom foundation. Herod the Great, the Citadel of David, or the Tower of David, or Herod's Tower, it was the only thing that Caesar, Titus, did not destroy. He didn't destroy that. He left it there to show what he did, what his army, how great his army was. And the foundation stones in the Tower of David, the Citadel of David, are still there. It was destroyed later on, but Caesar left it standing. And then some of the rocks, the Wailing Wall. The Wailing Wall is, here is the eastern gate now, all right? Have to look at it here. Yep, that's the eastern gate right there. And then Stephen's gate is over here. All right, this is where Stephen preached. That's what they call the Lion's Gate or Stephen's Gate right there. They're not very far apart. And that was also where the sheep gate was, where they took the sheep. Now, the Last Supper was held over here, in this area right here. We're going to see all these things. But Jesus walked all the way from the upper room where the Last Supper was. He walked all the way down here to the old city of Jebush and over here on the Mount of Olives. And this is where he was arrested, over here on the Mount of Olives. Right here is the area where where the stone was, where he wept, and where he literally sweated blood. All right, so he had to walk back and forth. And then when he was arrested, he was hauled over here to Caiaphas' house. We will see Caiaphas' house and different places, but he was hauled all over the place, and then over to Pilate's. They only discovered, I think it was in 1931, they discovered the pavement, what they call the pavement, the Gabbatha, where Jesus was tried. So a lot of these things, they're still discovering to this day over there. Anyway, this to give you a little bit of perspective, the city, the temple area is about 35 acres. The walls that you see is about 2.5 miles. That's it. The walls are about 40 feet high, and they're a combination of different stones from early ages. When Caesar destroyed the city of Jerusalem in AD 70, except for what we call the Tower of David, or Hadrian's Tower, his fortress, okay, all of it was destroyed, and it was laid rubble until about 600 AD. The first slide we're going to see on here is the Catholics' Calvary. All right, how many of you know about Gordon's Calvary and the Catholics' Calvary and all that? Anybody here know anything about any of that? No? Huh? The what? Oh, you mean the ones that went there? The Catholic Church? Yeah, whatever you call them. I can't think of it either. What? Yeah, the Crusaders. Yeah, the Crusaders went back in there, and I'll tell you a little bit of history of that as we look at it, okay? And I hope you're enjoying this. I've enjoyed showing it to you, and it's been a lot of work to remember all of this. Let me get these lights out. I'll see if I can remember some of this. Thank you, David. All right, now we saw in the I believe the last week, did we see Gordon's Calvary? In the last? No, we didn't.
I don't think we did.
No, we didn't. We're going to see that this week. All right. I have gone over this so many times at home that I can't remember what I thought and what it didn't be. All right. Now, this is the Catholic Calvary. This is one of the Crusaders. This Calvary, how many of you heard of Eusebius? Eusebius, the early church historian, okay? Eusebius said this is the real Calvary. All right, he went there back at those period of time, and he said he thought that this was the real Calvary. Now, there are two different places that are main areas. There's Gordon's Calvary, and there's this Calvary. Now, this Calvary is inside the city of Jerusalem. But in 44 A.D., Herod Agrippa built a wall around and encompassed this Calvary. This was in 44. Of course, this is a long time after Jesus died on the cross. All right. Anyway, they fought over this area, the place of the skull, for probably 1,400 years. All right. I'm going to tell you just a little bit of a history of it. Now, Hadrian, when he found out where this was, he wanted to obliterate every memory of Jesus. All right? And Calvary and what happened on Calvary. He went and built a temple right over where Calvary was and tried to destroy everything about it. The rock of Calvary was originally about 45 feet tall, stuck up out of the ground, and this is where they crucified people, and there was holes in it. And they would stick these crosses in there. Well, he completely demolished the whole area and built a temple on top of it. Some of them say it was a temple to Aphrodite, Venus, and then some of them say it's a temple of Jupiter. But whatever kind of a temple it was a pagan temple. And he built it and completely covered up, leveled out this area, and built this big temple in here. In 326 A.D., Constantine the Great came here, and he destroyed, and he tried to find out the holy places, what he called the holy sites, where Jesus was baptized, where he was born. We know that last week we looked at the Bethlehem, we looked at the site where Jesus was born. We know that he was born at that site. They built churches over that area. It was demolished. They built churches over this area. It was demolished, demolished, demolished. And they had to dig it up and find the thing. But in 326, Constantine the Great built a church over, or a shrine over this area. All right? In 614 A.D., it was destroyed by the Persians and tried to wipe it out again. Okay? It was rebuilt again by Abbot Modesto about 1009 A.D. And then it was destroyed again. And for 200 years they fought over this area, this deal. Many times when the Muslims would go in, they would tear up all the Christian sites. And then after a while they got to where they say, well, why did not Israel take over the Mosque of Omar when they conquered and won that war there and got possession of Jerusalem? Why didn't they do that? Why didn't they tear down the Mosque of Omar and put them a temple up there? Their military leader said, if I go in there and take possession of the holy city, the old city of Jerusalem, we will never cease to be in war. We'll be fighting from now on, because that is one of the most holy sites of the Muslim world right there. Islam, that's one of the most holy sites. That's supposedly where Muhammad ascended into heaven, okay, where that Rock of Moriah is. And they built that in 600 A.D. That temple was there since 600 A.D. And we know that that is the Rock of Moriah. That is it. Zion is on back further, but that is the Rock of Moriah. That's where Abraham offered Isaac, okay? Well, you go back in time and you'll find out that finally the Crusaders, they built the last church. And that church has been standing for 500 years there. Now, Gordon's Calvary, when we go to Gordon's Calvary, is this too much archaeology for you? Now, almost every evangelical Christian, they won't even go to this place because the Catholics have. They're not going to go rub elbows with those Catholics. But if you're really an archaeologist, and if you really want to study and find out where something really was, you have to look through your religious prejudices and use your head besides something but a half bracket. Okay? That's what you got to do. Now, there are a lot of pluses and minuses about which Calvary is correct. Okay? But I think historically, this is probably the real Calvary. Okay? Now, almost every tour guide is going to tell you that that's not Calvary. Here's the other Calvary over here. Here's Gordon's Calvary. And it's got a place that looks like the place of the skull. And it's got a garden tomb and all this kind of stuff. There was also a tomb here. And Christians were going back here before 300 AD. And Eusebius said that he believed this was definitely Calvary and the tomb of Jesus. That's what he said. And that's a long time ago. So, I would say the weight of the argument would say that this is probably Calvary. But I can't tell you for sure. You can look at it. I will show you the other. I had a great experience at the other Calvary. But when it comes to studying archaeology and everything, you've got to be rational about everything. And I think this one's got more weight than the other one, okay? Now, whether that made any difference to you or not, I don't know. I got to skip a few slides over here. All right, we got a Hebrew scholar here. What does that say there, young man? Quiver, Rachel. Quiver, Rachel. So what is that? That is the tomb of Rachel. Remember when Rachel died on the way? And they buried her in a tomb. Well, there is Rachel's tomb. It's still there today. It is venerated by the Muslims and the Jews. They go there and they pray to have a successful childbirth. What happened here? What happened here? Why did Rachel die? She died in childbirth, didn't she? All right. And what was it? What was the boy's name? She had two boys, didn't she? Huh? Rachel had two boys, didn't she?
Oh, wow.
All right. What two boys did she have? Joseph and Benjamin, didn't she? All right. All right. Joseph and Benjamin. All right. She had, yes.
Did she die from either one of those? Or
Yes, she died from the last son. The last son. All right. Anyway, Rachel's tomb is still there today. This is a site that they say is the real site. We don't have to worry about that. That's pretty much Rachel's tomb. And it says Quiver Rachel right there, the tomb of Rachel. It's not pointed, by the way, is it there, Roger? They don't point Hebrew in Israel. You have to just know what it is. All right, here we are looking in the hills as we're going between Jerusalem and the Mount of Olives, and to we're going down to the Cave of Machpelah. All right. Now, where Joshua and Caleb went up on the mountain and they got the grapevines. Now here, you see the grapevines in the background? That's the way we grow grapevines in our fields here. But do you see the grapevines in the front? See the grapevines in the front? Those are laying on the ground.
Those going back and forth?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Well, my battery must be dead. I dropped this. It goes on and shuts off. I brought my pointer with me today, but did it move that time?
Kind of like this up there?
Yeah. There, right there. That's the way it works. There is where the grapevines are laying on the ground. That's the way the grapevines were back in those times. They did not have them up on arbors like this. See that? The grapevines were laying on the ground. The reason why do they grow the grapevines on the ground like that?
Easier to pick up?
It's easier to pick them up there. Why do you have grapevines on the ground? This is the land that is very scarce of water. And if you go look around your driveway or something, and you don't have any water out in some area, there are grass and stuff and weeds are going to go around rocks. So the rocks, at nighttime, they gather moisture. And see all the rocks in the field? By the way, I heard so many times over the years that the Jews had the stones cut and we're going to import them from someplace else and have them cut and build the new temple all the time. Well, I'm going to tell you something. They don't need to import any stones in the land of Israel at all. What's wrong with this thing? It's going cold air.
So it's too cold.
Yeah.
It does get warmer.
We'll turn it off. Anyway, there are the grapevines laying on the ground. And by the way, this is where Joshua and Caleb got their grapes, okay? There I am standing in front of the area there. It was pretty foggy, and of course it was in the wintertime here. This was a very fertile area. This is Caleb's inheritance. This is where the giants live, the Nephilim. All right? And that is where Machpelah is. The first person to build a monument over the tomb of Machpelah was Herod the Great. He built a big church, or basically not a church, but a temple over the area where Abraham, Isaac, Rachel, Jacob, and Leah are buried. All right? They're buried in that area, okay? This was our archaeological person. He's an archaeologist. Tells us about all this. This here is what you probably won't see except if you go on the internet. That's the entrance to the tomb of Machpelah right there. You can't go in this area, but that is the area. Now, the Muslims would never go into this tomb. They said it was too sacred a site to go into. They revered the thing as holy, so they wouldn't do anything. They didn't want to tear it up. The Caesars destroyed the church on top of it, the temple on it, and about, I think it was 600 AD, the Muslims built another site here because Abraham's their father, isn't it? Okay, and here's before Abraham. Abraham is in that tomb. Isaac is in that tomb. Rachel, or not Rachel, but Rebecca is in that tomb. Here we are. We got soldiers all around with guns and gunfire going over all the time I'm there, you're hearing dit-dit-dit-dit, boom, boom, boom. All right? They're around with their guns all the time. They're fighting all around there. This is a hot area back then, and it's an extremely hot area right now. I think it was about 1990 that a Jewish doctor went over there and killed a whole bunch of Arabs. And they won't let anybody in here at all since about 1990. There is another shot of the outside of it. I had this thing all this time.
Tell us who you have, dude.
Huh? Okay. Sometimes it'll work up, but it won't work when it goes down. It quits working. Okay, there it is. That right there is an area where a Muslim caller will get up there. He's one of their priests. He'll get up there and he'll holler out 5 times a day and call them to prayer. 24 hours a day. They get up there and do that. Now see these hats right there? I had one of those hats on, and those are camel skin hats. There's one right there on that guy.
How come they only pray 5 times?
What?
How come they only pray 5 times?
They pray they officially pray 5 times a day.
But why 5? Why not 7?
That's what Mohammed said. Okay? They do everything like Mohammed said, okay? This is inside of it. Now if you could read Hebrew, right there, it says Isaac. And that is Rebecca. Right there. Now, there are, down in the tomb, inside of here, there are 6 of these things. Okay? And these 6 tombs above are exactly right straight over the areas where the patriarchs are buried in this tomb. And when I went into this area, to tell you the truth, my hair stood on end. You walk into this area, and this is where Abraham is buried. This is where Jacob is buried. This is where Isaac is buried. They're there. Not maybe. They're there in this area. Nobody doubts this at all. This is the place. This area back here where there's a pulpit and everything else, that was carved out. This goes all the way back to some of the things in here go all the way back to 3, 4, 5, 600 AD. This present building was built, I believe, about 1100, if I remember right. But in here you can go in and you can see this area, and you walk in there, and the carpets you're walking on right there, those carpets are 2,000 years old.
They're wool?
Huh? They're wool. Yeah, they're 2,000 years old. That's when you walk.
Like,
huh?
What's it smell like?
Smell like wool. Yeah, I can smell that place still. The area in here, all this carving and everything, this is all like 1,000, 1,500 years old. And when you walk into places over there, it's amazing. In this country here, we had some ancient Indian dwellings and things, but they've been destroyed. They wiped this country out. Back over there, some of the stuff is still standing. The Roman road is still there. All right? They have a little more, and like I said, a Muslim or Christians, and when they think of Christian over there, they think you're a Catholic. Okay? They don't know what anything else is, but a Christian, if you're a Christian, you're a Catholic. Okay? This is a very important place. This is Mamre. What happened at Mamre? How many of you know what happened at Mamre?
I remember.
This is where Jehovah appeared to Abraham and told him that Sarah was going to have a baby. Okay? This place right, and we know that this is the place, okay? This is not debatable. This is Mamre. This is where it is. They found, they've gone in there and done archaeological sites, and they know that this is Mamre. There were holy sites buried or built over this site, one on top of another. One would destroy another. They finally got where the religions wouldn't tamper with the sites because it called 200 or 300 years of war after that. They didn't quit fighting. The Muslims would chase the Christians all the way to Europe. And then the Christians would chase them all the way back to the Holy Land. They said, oh man, they're over there messing up the Church of Calvary. So they go back there and they fight like mad and just kill each other. Just people would be laying dead all over the place, chopped to pieces over holy war. They finally decided, we're just going to leave these holy places alone after a while. And we'll just let them come in at different times. Anyway, here is where Jehovah appeared to Abraham and told him that Sarah was going to have a child. This is where Sarah laughed. And this is where Abraham laughed at God, and they named the child what?
Isaac.
Isaac, Itchik, which is laughter. All right? And this is also is where Abraham pleaded for Sodom. This is the place also where Abraham left to go capture and take back Lot when he was taken by all of those kings that came into Sodom and Gomorrah. See, Jehovah went with Abraham. He rescued Lot and all the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah and all those areas. And then later on, after he appears to Abraham again, God decides that Sodom and Gomorrah and all of those cities have become so bad that he's going to wipe them out. So here is the same place where Abraham pleaded with God. If there's 5 left in the city, if there's 10 left in the city, if there's 50 of them that are worthy, and he thought for sure Abraham, or not Abraham, but Lot had a wife and he had 2 daughters, didn't he? And he had 2 espoused sons-in-law, so how many does that make? 5. Surely there was more people than 5 saved all the time Lot was there. Well, evidently there weren't. Only 3 of them got out of their life, remember? There at the Dead Sea, down there where it was, Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt. All of this happened at Mamre. All of it Mamre. All right. There I am with my camel hat, my camel skin hat. It's Paisley. There, his name, I think his name was Richard Paisley. This is where the Ethiopian eunuch baptized, or was baptized here. Remember when Philip baptized the Ethiopian eunuch? This is where it was. By the way, this Ethiopian eunuch was reading what part in the Bible? He was reading Isaiah 53, wasn't he? And he said, do you understand what you're reading? And he said, how can I understand except someone interpret it for me? Now, this Ethiopian eunuch, his relative, was the one that carried the cross for Jesus. Did you know that? And their family, what happened right here when that Ethiopian eunuch was baptized here? That bunch went and they evangelized, and they were great Christian leaders in the early churches. Well, that's where that Ethiopian eunuch was baptized, right there. Now, do you see, it was a pool. He wasn't sprinkled, he wasn't poured upon, but he was dipped. Okay? And always, in different times of the year, this is the place where it was. Okay?
Did that pool have a name?
Well, I think they call it the Phillips pool, the pool of Philip or something.
It didn't have a name before that.
I don't know whether it had a name before that. I can't remember. The archaeologist probably told me, but I forgot it. All right, here we go. Look at the little donkeys. Now, the donkeys we got over here are what they would call in the Bible wild asses. But these are tame donkeys. These are domesticated. Look at the loads that they have on them. See that? And they'll just go along. You know, they just go where they're supposed to go. And they've been doing it for thousands of years. These are probably descendants of Abraham's donkeys. All right. Over there, are you going back up? Let's see, I'll get over here to the next one. There we are. All right, there we go. That's a bank.
Really?
Can anybody read that Hebrew there?
It says,
By the way, is it pointed?
come in for your shekels.
Barclays Discount Bank, that's what it says in Arabic, it says it in Hebrew, and it says it in English. All right, Barclays Discount Bank in Jerusalem. I thought I'd show you that. You know how you say telephone in Jewish?
Telephone?
Huh? Telephone. All right.
I know you're too good now.
That's the Damascus Gate. All right. In the city of Jerusalem, let's see if I can look back here real quick. There are 34 towers in the city of Jerusalem. There's 2.5 miles of walls. There are 8 gates, and the walls are an average of 40 feet tall. Well, this is the Damascus Gate right here. Now, there's another picture of it right there. The Damascus Gate. Now, why did they call it the Damascus Gate?
It was the area into the
Huh?
city.
Huh? If you were going to go to Damascus, you would set your caravan out here and you would camp outside this gate. Because during this period of time, you couldn't just go out across the country and travel because there were a lot of outlaws. You know those guys that were crucified with Jesus and that bad old boy? Remember what his name was? Barabbas. You know, he was the leader of all the criminals back then. He had killed many, many people. There were outlaws all over. And Barabbas and his 2 lieutenants were going to be crucified. And when Pilate says, do you want me to turn Barabbas back loose on you? Or do you want me to give you Jesus? And they said, give us Barabbas. And he was a murderer. Okay? Talk about how bad those people were. Those people, and basically, you know what? Still, they don't believe in Jesus today, do they? They'll smile and do all kinds of stuff, take your money and take you on tours over there, but they still don't believe in Messiah. And if Jesus came up again, they try to crucify him again. Well, everybody would wait outside the Damascus gate that was going to go to Damascus. When the Apostle Paul was going to Damascus, he waited until a caravan was formed so there'd be enough people in the caravan so it would be safe to travel. And whichever way they went, that's the way they'd go. They'd go meet at that gate. All right? Now, here is a garden. This is what you call a garden tomb. This is a beautiful place. This may have been, and the guy that we had there's a picture of him right there. He was a great speaker. He was what he called himself a master in England. He was a British teacher. And he's also a colonel in the army. Well, he told us about the history of this tomb. In 1800 and something, there was a man over there by the name of Gordon who was looking around. And he came upon this area, and he went back and reported, he said that archaeologically this could be the place where Jesus was crucified, and this could be the place where he was buried. Because the tomb was a 1st century tomb. And the hill did look like a skull. Okay? Now, we have to remember that all this time we still have the Church of the Holy Sepulchre over there. Okay, but it's in Jerusalem. And this one here is on the outside of the gate, by the way. So they said, well, maybe this possibly could be the tomb of Jesus. And if it's not the tomb of Jesus, it looked like this back at that period of time. He was about this close also. All right? So he tells the story, and he said one thing about it. He said, one of the reasons why we're here talking about the tomb of Jesus and Calvary is because Jesus rose from the dead. He said, that you got to remember. He didn't stay in the tomb. And I will say one thing. When I saw that hill, I melted. As you can see, it does look like a skull with the eyes and the mouth and everything.
What does that represent, yeah?
That's the eyes of the skull, and that's the nose and the mouth. That's where they say this is Gordon's Calvary, and they say that was Calvary where Jesus was crucified. Okay? They found some relics and things around here that it's possible. This possibly could be the site. Right up there is where he was supposed to have been crucified, right up there. I have been up there on that side.
What's the skull for? It's like,
It's just a hill that looks like a skull.
it's all
Okay? This is what Gordon said could be Calvary. Okay, this is what you call Gordon's Calvary. How many have you ever heard any of this stuff?
No.
You got anybody? Connie, you've heard about it again.
I want to ask you, is that a cave or is that just a
No,
rock?
that's just a hill that looks like a skull. That part of it looks like a skull. as you
Were they
can
at the
see.
bottom where he was on the
Well,
cross?
now, there's buildings all over the place. There's buildings back there and all over. Now, there's buildings right up there. You can't even get up there. I think Roger said he slipped out in the middle of the night and got up on top of that hill. But the most probability is this probably isn't the hill where Jesus was crucified. It's probably in Jerusalem, in the Catholic side. Probably more evidence on that one than there is on this one. But I'm going to tell you something. When I saw that hill right there, it affected me tremendously. Because I saw that and it just sent chills all over me, because I realized if anybody's ever been saved in this world, it's because of what Jesus did on the cross of Calvary. That's it. Oh, this thing worked all these years, but now it's not working. Okay, there it is. That's the hill. There I am standing against that hill. And I have walked up on top of the mountain where they say that Calvary was. They have found people that have been crucified and buried in different places with the nails in their feet and in their hands, just like the Roman cross was. By the way, the word for the cross was staros. Staros. That's the word staros. The cross originally was a stake. Originally, crucifixion was impaling. They would take a sharpened stick and they would set you on top of the stick, and the stick would go up through your innards. It would go up through your innards. The Assyrians, the Ninevites, is the ones that invented it, and they're the ones that invented crucifixion. But it was what we call impaling at that time. In the book of Esther, remember when Haman was impaled on the cross? He had built this scaffold 70 feet in the air with a sharp stick on it. It said he was hung on the cross. He wasn't hung on the cross. He was set on the stick. That's where the word staros and impaling came from. It evolved. The next thing, whoa, it's the same word. Okay, the next thing,
That's what that is.
yeah, probably, was an X. Just look at an X. Just on that screen, just put an X on there. The next way, the Romans decided to make an X for this crucifixion. And they would nail one hand on one side, one hand on the other side, and then one foot on one side, one foot on the other side. But they said they died too quick. They originally nailed them to a stake. Their hands above them and their feet below them. Well, they died too quick. They wanted to do something to where somebody would suffer for days on the cross. It was a deterrent to crime, they thought. Anyway, they had the X one like that. They had the stake like this, the staros, and the X one. And then the Romans finally decided that they could have a cross, a T cross, a tau cross, okay? And they would nail one hand there, and they put a place to set their butt down, and they would be stripped off naked, and down they would nail their feet so they could push themselves up to get a breath. They died of suffocation, usually. They suffocated. But on that cross, some people lived for over 2 weeks and suffered. Now, this is if you look right here, there was a great stone laid in here, and they rolled it. Remember last week we looked at the Lazarus tomb? They rolled a stone over the mouth to the cave. Well, I think there was 20-something steps that went down into Lazarus' tomb. Well, they rolled a stone over it, they covered it, and see how this tomb is? Now, this was a tomb. This is the 1st century tomb, okay? And see how it's all been worked off with chisels and everything there? See the chisel marks? And then it's been walled up there a little bit. Well, inside of a rich man's tomb, and this was probably a more wealthy person's tomb, inside was a large chamber, and then they had shelves where they would put the body. This meets all the requirements of the type of tomb that Jesus was buried in, okay? But so did the other one, the Catholic one, okay? But this one here, you can see it better. The other one, you go in there, and it's got a piece of glass over it where you can look down where Calvary was and the stone was cracked and everything, and where Golgotha was at that time. This one here, it's a mountain still. There's the group we were with, and I'm coming out of the tomb right there. And there's what the inside of the tomb. This is the place, they say, where Jesus was buried. And by the way, they said nobody ever rotted in this tomb. No human body ever rotted. There is no remains of anybody rotting in this tomb, so this tomb was never used, basically. It was a tomb that wasn't used. Now, that's an asset. You know, it could be the one because Jesus didn't rot, did he? And surely they wouldn't bury anybody else in the tomb that Jesus was buried in, would they? And there I am, and there I am in there. See, I was young then. I was 29 years old. See over there? See that where I'm trying to point to that thing? That's the place where they say that Jesus, his clothes were all wrapped up, his grave clothes. That's my camel skin hat too. And there it says Gethsemane. All right, this is Gethsemane. There's no doubt where Gethsemane is. There are 8 olive trees in the Garden of Gethsemane that go back, they say, maybe 4,000 years ago. These may be the trees that David sat under. Josephus said that all the trees around Jerusalem, when Titus destroyed it, that he cut all the trees down. They say that an olive tree doesn't die. Even if he cut these trees down, these are the sprouts of the trees that David walked under. And these are probably the trees that Jesus walked under. This is the place where the rock was, where Jesus sweat blood and cried great drops of tears. This is what they call the Church of all nations. The Lord's Prayer is written in this thing, I think, in 60-something language. I think 16 churches contributed, or 16 nations contributed to the building of this edifice here. So they call it the Church of all nations. There's those ancient olive trees. When you walk into this garden, you know that Jesus walked there. There's no doubt this is where he was. This is outside the church. By the way, they wouldn't let us take pictures in a lot of these things. You had to buy slides. That one was a commercial slide that I had to buy because they wouldn't let you take a picture inside the building. That way they make extra money that way too. There I am in Gethsemane. What is that up there above you? You know what that is? No. Well, that's Mount Moriah. Also, there's the Dome of the Rock up there. I wish this thing would work.
Looks like some castle or something.
Right up there, that's the Eastern Gate. That's the Golden Gate, the Eastern Gate, all right? That's the Golden Gate or the Eastern Gate. That wall was walled up. That gate was walled up 1,000 years ago, at least. At least 1,000 years ago. And, by the way, that gate's not supposed to open until when? So Jesus walked through it. So all they did was fulfill prophecy. There I am standing from the Eastern Gate from the Mount of Olives.
You say the gate's not supposed to open, Jim. What is that? Is that there's some big doors on it or something? Or
It's walled up. It's stoned in.
So
Masonry.
You'll have to come through it somehow.
Nobody can come through it. Well, Jesus could walk through that
Right, okay.
and just clear it out of the way with nothing. I mean, he's the God of the universe. That's nothing for him. By the way, this is what you call a great gathering place of dead people right here. This is what you call a necropolis. Dead people want to be buried between here and there because this is what they say the last judgment's going to be, and everybody wants to be close to God when he resurrects. And there's Muslim cemeteries and there's Christian cemeteries. People will die, and well, that one church there on this mountain there, where you'll see the Russian onion skin domes over here. If you look in that picture over there, you'll see them way far to the right. That was a Russian princess. When the Bolsheviks killed her in, I think, 1917, they had her body. She wanted her body buried here on the Mount of Olives. That's what she said, and they built a church around it.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
That where Jesus is going to come through the Golden Gate, that was walled up by the Turks. Isn't that what you told me?
I think it's the Turks that walled it up.
Now,
Back in some period, I think it was 700 AD.
uh-huh.
I used to be able to remember all this stuff.
Except for that big castle right there, Jim.
All right, does anybody know who that is?
That's Jim.
What is that? That's a camel. All
It's got
right.
big feet.
I felt sorry for that camel.
Because you're on him?
People got on that camel one after another. That poor old camel's knees were, now they say that James' knees were calloused. Okay, look at that from kneeling. Look at that camel's knees. That camel's knees have got calluses on it, and their calluses are even bleeding. That's blood on the ground from that camel's knees getting up and down. You don't climb up on a camel with him standing up. You get on him when he's sitting down. And then he has to get up and down, and up and down, and up and down, and they grumble all the time. And you can see why they grumble. All right?
Jim, do you have a picture of where he had to carry the cross up there?
But that's on down the road.
Okay.
Via Dolorosa. All right, there we are. Now this is on the Mount of Olives. Anybody know what this is? This is a church, a place where people go and pray. This is the place where Jesus left the Mount of Olives. This is where his church last saw him. They say that his footprints are in a stone there. And I know that I've been in there, but I don't remember where I saw the footprints or not. I don't remember. But they're supposed to be the footprints of Jesus in a rock. In a rock. Okay? There we're looking from Jerusalem to the Mount of Olives, and that's the church of all nations there that we talked about. That's Gethsemane over there. You're looking toward Gethsemane. And that's Absalom's tomb. That's Absalom's tomb.
It's David's kid, huh?
Yeah, that's David's boy. That's Absalom's tomb right there. And it's in the Kidron Valley. Now this is the necropolis. All of these are graves. Thank you, David. Those are all graves. I mean, 1 million graves around here. I think they stand them on their feet to get them in there. They're so thick.
Did they take him out of his? Remember, he was died. He was killed by the oak tree or whatever, and then they put him in a hole, and then they didn't want to show him to the somebody.
David, you know.
So they took him out, and put him in there.
Yeah. And this is more tombs. So look at all these tombs. This is the King's Valley here, they call it, where some of the kings are buried. By the way, Mamre was where David was crowned king also. And he ruled from Mamre, that we looked at a while ago, for 7 years before he came to Jerusalem. What?
Is that part of the
This one? This is part of the necropolis. That's not the same tomb. See, that's Absalom's tomb there. Okay? This is another fancy tomb with some other royal people sometime or another. By the way, about, I think it was 7 miles or something like that from Hebron is where that Herodian is. That one Herodian that looked like a volcano. That's where Hadrian, or not Hadrian, but Herod the Great was buried in a golden coffin. And I don't know whether I think we saw that last week. I don't know for sure. Anyway, these are the tremendous stones in the corner of the wall. By the way, that right there, in that picture over there, you see that? This is the pinnacle of the temple. That's where Jesus, above that thing right up there, is where the devil took him and said, jump off. Jump off. Because if you go back here and look, let's go back and look. See if we can see Jerusalem over here. Maybe not. Anyway, you see where the Golden Gate is right there, all the way over here in the corner, right over that way. And look how deep that Kidron Valley is. That's deep. Anyway, that's the pinnacle of the temple. Right above that is where, and look how big those stones are. And this is the pool of Siloam. Now, as you can see, it's way down deep. You have to go way down into this. In the pool of Siloam is also what's called whose tunnel? Remember who built the tunnel? Remember when the Persians came in there and besieged Hezekiah, that he built a tunnel so they would have water in the city of Jerusalem? He built in, and he built this tunnel, and it went into the pool of Siloam. And he got that idea from Megiddo, by the way. There's a tunnel over there too, which I'll show you later on. But anyway, this is the pool of Siloam. What happened at the pool of Siloam? What was it? Remember what happened there? Remember, there was a blind man that was born blind.
Oh, yeah.
And Jesus made some spit and made some clay, some mud, and put on his eyes and said, go wash in the pool of Siloam and receive your sight. And he went and washed, and he could see, and he'd been born blind. And the Jews got real mad and said, who healed you? What day were you healed on? The Sabbath? This doctor is plying his trade, and that medicine he put on your eyes was probably good medicine, but he's breaking the law. That was the pool of Siloam. And then they kicked him out of the synagogue. He couldn't go to church anymore, and they kicked his mom and daddy out of the synagogue. They didn't want to believe. There's Hezekiah's tunnel and the pool of Siloam. All right, here we're going into. This is the road where Jesus walked when he was arrested. And Jesus was taken to this place, and we know that this is the place. Where was Jesus tried the first time illegally in the middle of the night? Remember? Where was Jesus tried? Where did they take him?
One of the priest's house.
All right, Caiaphas' house. This is Caiaphas' house. All right? And in Caiaphas' house was a dungeon, a jail cell where they kept criminals. And they let him down in that on a rope. Quit working here. They let him down in that rope, down in that tunnel. And Jesus was in this dungeon when they were accusing him. There's looking up out to the dungeon. This is a dungeon in Caiaphas' house. They know that this is Caiaphas' house. So he went from the Kidron Valley. He went from the Mount of Olives. He went through the Kidron Valley, and they took him over here to Caiaphas' house. And they illegally had a trial. There we are down in the dungeon. Looking up. This is where Jesus was. This is his jail cell. This is the jail cell. He probably sat on that rock bench.
So could they go see him in jail? When he was in jail, they could go see him?
No.
No.
He's in a dungeon.
Okay.
You could only get in there one way. How did you get in there?
The hole?
Let down on a rope in the hole. Or a ladder. All right, there's the house. Caiaphas' house is part of his house. They dug this up. All right, there's the road to Caiaphas' house. All right, there's Hezekiah's tunnel there also. Hezekiah's tunnel is still there today. When they were under siege. Now this is the upper room. They had an upper room on all houses. They had a ground floor and then had an upper room. The upper room is where the company stayed. And if you had any big dinners or something, it was in that upper room. And this, they say, may have been John's house. And this is the upper room. And they know that this is the place where this was, okay? Now, remember when I showed you over there on the Mount of Olives where the upper room was over there? And they had to walk from the upper room way over to the right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it working again?
Yeah.
All right, yes.
Everything I've read, they say the Romans level everything.
Yeah.
How would that still be said?
Well, this is the place where it was.
No.
They know exactly where it was, and they found artifacts of where this house was. And it's right there is where it is. on that picture, okay? It's right over in this area, right over here. And then Jesus had to walk, remember, walk through Old Jabush from the upper room, going out. Remember, he instituted the Lord's Supper and all this kind of stuff. This is where Judas betrayed him. He went over there, and then he went over here to the Mount of Olives over on this side, and he prayed there on that rock where we showed you where the rock was. That's what they call the Rock of Agony. He prayed over on that rock, and these are the places. This is where it all happened. But see, he had to walk quite a little way from there to there. And then they drug him back over there to Caiaphas' house. Now this place is right over there as you're looking to Jerusalem, okay? Well, there's the upper room. They built churches over all these sites. Constantine went in 300 and he built churches over all of these holy sites, what he said was holy sites. And then they were destroyed. And Eusebius went and looked at all these areas when he was over there, and he said these were the sites. All right. Brother Roger, can you read that? See that right there? David, Melech, Israel. All right? What does that say? David, king of Israel. David, king of... This is David's tomb. All right? This is under the citadel of David or Herod's
It's a big tomb.
citadel. That's David's tomb. Okay? Now, there's a controversy over where David was buried. Where is the city of David? There's two cities of David. Where are the two cities of David?
Bethlehem was one.
Bethlehem is one of them.
One of them was in Jerusalem.
Okay, and one of them's in Jerusalem. All right, over there where we call the citadel of David, where David's palace. Back over here, where the upper room was, that was over here. Okay, that's where right up in there is David's palace over in that area. Or it's the citadel of David. That was also called the city of David. There it is right there. That's where that tomb is, down in that area. But they also say, some people say that David was actually buried in Bethlehem. And they found some ancient tombs there in Bethlehem where it goes back where some kings were buried, and they say maybe David is one of them. But here is what the Jews think, that this is where David was buried, okay? Lots of rock. And another ancient olive tree. Olive trees. Well, we're going to have to quit for today.
That's enough.
Okay, that is the palace of Ahab and Jezebel. Ahab and Jezebel's palace. All right? They had several palaces. But up here on this hill is and then we're going to look and we're going to see Megiddo and all kinds. Are we going too slow? Or are you?
Oh, no, you're doing good.
Are you boring you to death? I hope I'm not boring you to death.
No, this is cool. I mean, you get to see the
Hey,
pictures of it.
you learning something with this? All right. We'll quit right there and come. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and finish these before we go back in Matthew. Is that all right? And by the way, we have DVDs of them. I have recorded them as I've talked on this and everything. Anyway, we got the last week and the week before are $5 a piece. If you want those things, we've got them available. And I will make one for this one also.
How many more weeks do you think?
I don't know. However long it struggles through it.
Well, I'll get the tape when it comes back.
Yeah.
So, no more looking.
Are you learning something as you're going? I'm giving you something like almost like an archaeological tour. It's not a Bible land tour. This is an archaeological tour.
I wish my dad would show up. This is loves archaeology.
Oh, yeah? Well, anyway, this is kind of like it, okay? All right, Brett, it's yours. I'm going to put you on camera before. There you are. Look at that. That's Brett, guys.
Star. I'm an MIT graduate. How you doing? Okay. We have some financial piece university. Jimmy, know anything about this guy?